very good if we meet in the temple. Yes, we can meet at other halls, rented places, and that has also its advantage. But for our own devotion, for our own spiritual upliftment, to sing and chant in the presence of the deities is just something very, very special. In fact, I'm just giving an online seminar to the devotees in America, and I shared just yesterday a statement from Srila Prabhupada who said, it's very simple, our process. You sit before Krishna and you sing to him. And I think in a temple this is very easy to observe, very easy to practice. We are sitting before Krishna and we sing to him, and he hears our singing and he reciprocates with us. He answers our questions, he solves our doubts, and he's there for us in the degree in which we turn to him. So therefore, coming together in the temple and singing as devotees is a great privilege, a great chance, a great opportunity. And the program which we will have today is divided in 3 parts. First, Krishna and myself will sing for about 45 minutes or so, and then we will request our guest, a dear friend of mine, and our relationship goes back, to a time when some of you were not even born, I would say. So we have His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Maharaj. He will give a lecture. Sadashiva's wife actually had the idea, I don't know, maybe it was between the two of you, Kirtan is the safest place. It's a nice title, especially in the light of the very recent developments, this inhuman conflict in the Ukraine and Donbass regions. So I think the whole Western world is shocked. The shock wave is going to our own hearts, really. And therefore this presentation, Krishna Kirtan is the safest place, might give us answers to our questions, might give us solutions and hope, actually. Then after the lecture, Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, I think we should also have the opportunity to ask some questions, if there are, and then he will also sing for another hour, and in this way our program has 3 parts. So I request all of you to sit tall. You might like to look at the deities, focus your sitting positions. The deities. But nice to see all of you, really. Refreshing to see all of you. And we will start with paying our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then let us please use the chants to really address the Lord. Also, you see, we have requested you to wear this, except for the singer, because the sound should be clear. Please, in the interest of just making this a very safe event for everyone, let us keep this little covering of our face.
Hare
conclude with this kirtan, suggest something which we find in the scriptures is a little advice how to really access deeper levels of chanting. So the first is, what you can do is just focus on each of the holy names. Just as you sing, make sure that when you sing Hari, your mind is totally with Hari. Then when you go to Krishna, your mind is totally with Krishna. And in this way, you are totally focused on each one of the holy names. This is the first step. And then comes the second step. In the second step, you try to really connect with Krishna. It's very easy when we are in a temple and we have the Lord right on the altar. You chant in a prayerful type of way, like as if your chanting has the sound, please accept me. As if through this mantra you're saying to the Lord, please accept me. And then comes the third level, that is that you're just in the ocean of sound. You're no longer trying to focus, you're no longer even trying to pray, but you're just absorbed in the sound vibration of the holy name. So let us try to do this. For the first mantra, we will just focus on each single one of the holy names. In this way, all our mental energy goes here into this ability which we have as human beings to be totally focused.
Hare
gesture of surrender or prayer up to the sky. And sing with me one more time. Hare to have today a very special guest who has been for, in the past, a long time in Germany, and he has helped to establish places like the Singhachalam farm and others, and has been also together with me for a long time. His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Maharaj. We will
Haribo!
Ja. Oder haben wir nicht diesen super,
Wir haben auch den ersten Satz.
Sorry,
Ein Sitz.
er meint, er könnte sich hinsetzen.
Du, aber mit dem Sessel ist doch auch sehr dekorativ und schön. Gut für die Knie. Eigentlich das Vorteil von einem
Dafür haben wir doch die Sessel.
Stuhl ist, dass man alles sehen kann.
Ja. Let us get the stool, or the Sessel, oder Sessel. So as we are going to get the Sessel, I wanted to just say a few words. Yes, it's actually good if you can see everyone, and one can see you here. This is super Sessel. No, I just wanted to say something which I have really noticed. So Krishna Kshetra Maharaj came and has been in a long time in Germany, and then he started to take part in a, let us say, in an effort in Krishna consciousness, which is very, very historic. He actually went to the Eastern Bloc at that time. There was a war between the East and the West. He went to East Germany and also to many other countries. I think Hungary, Poland, everywhere. You were also one of the pioneers who went to Russia, is it? Or, yes, so also Russia, but mostly these European Eastern countries. And then something very unexpected but very exemplary he did. See, Srila Prabhupada had always said that in the new times the great souls are the scientists. Their opinions and their views and also findings are considered to be authoritative. Yes, the scientist says so, it must be like this because he has researched, he has done many investigations before he came to a conclusion. So Prabhupada had always wanted that his devotees would go and go to the scientists, but that they would also start to bring the teachings of Krishna consciousness into the universities, no? That they would be taught at the universities. And Krishna Kshetra Maharaj took this serious. He went and made his doctor in Berkeley. I knew at that time Oxford, sorry. But you studied in Berkeley also, but a doctor in Oxford. Yes, and he did this with, it was not easy because he was a poor, financially not affluent person. So I remember he would his apartment was a camper, a car, and from there he would go to the university and he would slowly but surely receive all the academic qualifications, and now he is a voice amongst the many voices, but he is a voice in the academic field. When are you a voice in the academic field? Well, when you bring out articles, write or perish, publish or perish, they say. So he writes many articles, many books, and they are all on academic subjects with a lot of research, citations, etc. Very impressive. And the last book which I received was, believe it or not, a book published by one Chinese university. Which one?
Yunnan University.
Yes.
Which is in southwest China. It's considered respectable.
It's a very respectable university, Yunnan University. And now listen please to this. His book was not published in an underground press, but the Chinese government, who's really, really restrictive as far as anything spiritual, religious, theological is concerned, the Chinese government gave its stamp of approval to this book. It's a book where the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita are explained from various perspectives. First, the perspective of the Gita, then Christian perspective, Buddhist perspective, Taoist perspective, like a scholar. And this book, it is yellow in color and electric in touch. Really very deep and special. So I request you now, a real professor will speak to us. We have to shape up here a little bit. To maybe take care of it. Our frisura, in case there is one, in shape and calm your seeker. And we have to understand everything. Listen carefully. We should not. So let us, but more. This was more joyfully said. Let us welcome Krishna Kshetra Maharaj in a way where we could just affectionately call out, Go Premanandi!
Hare Krishna. It's so nice to be here in Berlin again. It's so nice to be here in Berlin. And I have to say, it's a little strange for me also, because the last 2 years I've been keeping quite isolated and meeting devotees only online. So it's like here, they're real people, real devotees. And so I'm a little confused. Okay, let's, I have to say Maharaj gave one of his famous introductions a little bit on the exaggerated side, but we always give space for that. So, yes, our topic today is Kirtan is, what was the title?
The safest place.
The safest place, okay. And I have a couple of ideas how we might explore this. First, I want to ask, though, if you'd like to stand up for 20 seconds to stretch, because it's already been over an hour you've been sitting. And should we open the window to get some fresh air? Oh, yeah, this way. Okay. Okay, let's again sit, unless you prefer to stand. That's also, if you prefer to stand, on the sides. And let's begin with pranati. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuruminitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manodishtam Savitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadali Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashatya Veshakarine Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabalotarapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudevi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasavi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. If you would like, you might want to move a bit closer this way to make more space for yourselves. It's a little just to yeah. That's good. So the first thing I'd like to do is a bit of an experiment.
Excuse me, we got visit from the officials and they told us that they got issues and they got the neighbors have told that it's too loud, so please we have to take care.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Ah, yes.
Not the lecture.
Yeah. So I want to do a little experiment. Let us imagine that we have a tafel here in front for making notes. and someone to write the notes. And what I want to do with all of your help is to make a little list of short sentences which start with Kirtan is. Okay? Kirtan is ... So we want your suggestions. Kirtan is?
Love.
Kirtan is joy. Okay. Kirtan is wonderful.
Ecstasy.
Kirtan is ecstasy.
Kirtan is love.
Kirtan is love, 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 love.
Kirtan is loud.
Kirtan is loud. Yes.
Kirtan is connection.
Kirtan is connection. Very nice. Okay.
Pleasing the world.
Kirtan is überall auf der Welt. Krishna, Kirtan is everywhere. Very good.
It's an experience. Experience.
Kirtan is experience. Okay.
Peaceful.
Kirtan is eternal presence.
Kirtan is peaceful. Kirtan is eternal presence.
Yes.
Okay.
Prayer.
Kirtan is worship.
Kirtan is worship. Yes.
Kirtan is the real practice for the soul.
Real practice for the soul.
Yes.
Yeah, we could say Kirtan is real soul music.
Kirtan brings emotion.
Kirtan is?
Brings emotion.
Brings emotion. Okay.
Kirtan brings connecting to the inner world.
Connecting to the inner world. Very good.
Kirtan is pleasing to Krishna.
Kirtan is?
Pleasing to Krishna.
Pleasing to Krishna. Very nice.
It's calling the divine.
Calling the divine. That sounds like the divine. Sounds a little abstract, but yes. Very good. I think we have quite a few. And I would say we've all passed the test. And you have all spoken my lecture now. All of the content essentially is there. I made some notes, and I thought what I might do is kind of tell you in advance what I have in mind, a little overview, but I want to watch the time also and see how much of this we get through. And yes, we want to have some time for discussion. We may be adjusting the schedule a bit since we're being warned about too much volume, so I don't know if we can have more kirtan, or if we, let's see. So, where am I? Here. Okay. Yeah, so I think a starting place when we think about Kirtan as the best, the safest place to be is we think about what is not safe. We look at our situation and we understand that we are in a difficult condition. So I want to say some things about that and some of the dynamics of the dangers that we encounter in this world. And then we recognize these dangers and we try to do something about them. We try to counteract. We try to make arrangements to protect ourselves. so many arrangements for protection. So I want to say something on that topic, referring to Prahlad Maharaj in the Bhagavatam, one of his prayers. And then I want to say a little about how we begin to have some understanding internally of our condition, our existential, our problem in this world. And then we can begin to speak about, on the more positive side of Kirtan. And for this, what we want to do is move toward a solution. Actually, do we have an English Bhagavad? Yes, English Bhagavad as it is. I think I may want to refer to this. Thank you. And then I want to reflect a little on the idea of Kirtan as performance. Srila Prabhupada sometimes spoke of performing devotional service. Performing devotional service. Are we on stage? What is this about? And then I want to go back to the Bhagavatam and refer to a verse that many of you have probably heard before. Kalim sabadayantyarya gunagya sarvavina yatra sankirtanenaiva sarvasvarto pilapyate. That the wise who are gunagya, who know what is good, what is virtuous, they advise us to engage at this time, in this situation of this age of Kali, in what is called Sankirtana. Kirtana and Sankirtana, of course, are related. So we know something about this. Jagannatha Subhadravadi Chalanivasaya Nityaya Paramahandi Balavatra Svatavyam Jagannatha Tena. And I may finish with an interesting little story about one of Srila Prabhupada's earliest disciples, Sacinandana Swami, in India. And we'll see how we go from here. So these are some of the things I want to discuss. Let's see. Back. Yes, okay. Okay, so what's our problem? According to Lord Brahma, who should know because he's seeing the entire situation of this material world. After all, he has been the engineer of this world. He says, Samasritaya ye padapalava plavam mahatpadam punya yashomurai. That this is a place, padam vipadam, a place of stepping, and then stumbling. Padam yad vipadam, not tesham. Of those who take shelter of the Lord, this is not the case. There's no stumbling for those who take shelter of the Lord. We might say there's no stumbling because instead of walking, the devotees who take shelter of the Lord are dancing. And they become expert dancers. Shriya Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpataro Drumabum is Chintamani Ganamayi Toyamamitam Yata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Shipriya Saki Chidanandam Jyoti Paramapita Asvadhyamapicha. That the water in the spiritual world is nectar. and every word is poetry, and every step is a dance. And so Lord Brahma tells us that for one who has taken shelter of the Lord, then there's no stumbling. There is, instead there is dancing. But for those who have not taken shelter of the Lord, padam vipadam, there is danger at every step. There is stumbling all of the time. So this is our problem, and it's a problem which is on all levels of our lives. First of all, physically. Our physical bodies are vulnerable, and if you have any doubt about the vulnerability of your body, just look at us all right now, wearing our funny masks. Who was that masked man? When I was a kid, there was a television series, The Wild West, and there was the Lone Ranger, and he always wore a mask, not this type of over his eyes, and he was always doing something heroic, and they would say, who is that masked man? Well, now everyone is a masked man, a masked man or woman. We are vulnerable. We are so vulnerable. I think everyone has become especially conscious of this in the last 2 years, isn't it? That something can give us so much trouble that we cannot even see some virus, which we can't even see it, except with a very powerful microscope. One can also consider any single portion of your body. Take your hand, how many ways you might give some pleasure to your hand, and now how many different ways that your hand might suffer. And you'll see that the number of ways that your hand would suffer, or could suffer, and may suffer, are so many more than the way that your hands might receive pleasure. So these bodies are really very much subject to suffering conditions and dangerous conditions. And as a result, what is the result? We are fearful. Before I came to meet the devotees, to join the devotees, I was in the university long before, and I was really contemplating deeply that I recognize that I'm not happy, and I don't quite know why, but I did a sort of process of elimination of trying to understand what is the difficulty, and it came down to this single point, that I feel fear. And I understood this is fear of death. A fear of non-existence, really. So everyone suffers from a fear of non-existence. That's our condition in this life. I had one professor, many years later, who used to joke that in the Christian tradition they have the idea of original sin. That's sort of in the beginning of time. There was a breaking of the order of God, and this was the original sin. My professor said, in Indian traditions, it's not so much about original sin, it's more about original ignorance. We are born in ignorance. We come into this world and we have no idea about anything. And from that condition, we struggle to gain knowledge. And a major reason for gaining knowledge is for self-preservation. We simply want to preserve ourselves. Survival is a priority for us. And we are faced actually with destruction as human beings. I'm telling all the dark realities, which we already know, but it's good to remember that we are faced with destruction, or apparent destruction, which is to say that, of course, we understand, Krishna reassures us in the Bhagavad Gita that there's no question of destroying the soul, the self, that we are in fact eternal, but the experience, or the perception we have is that we are subject to destruction. And there are four kinds of destruction according to Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a constant destruction, Nityalaya, or Pralaya. It's going on as we speak. Everything is crumbling apart. Our bodies are disintegrating, cells are disintegrating. There's Naimittika, occasional destruction, what we're seeing in Ukraine today. There's Prakritika destruction, which is the on a larger scale, cosmic destruction, which happens cyclically. And there's something called Atyantiki, or Atyantika destruction, which is the destruction of material existence by the successful yogi. Atyantika Pralaya. Destruction of the illusion of the destruction of the illusion of destruction. In any case, we are faced with a situation of what we perceive as danger, and so we seek shelter. We seek safety. It's been said that there are three things that that motivate us, that are behind, practically speaking, all of our emotions. There's a sense of wanting to control. We want to have a sense of control. Now, sometimes we don't want to have a sense of control. We want to have a sense of, you decide, and I'll do whatever, everyone else does. Sometimes that's there. There is a wanting, there's a desire for approval. We are social beings, and we feel very threatened if we don't feel that others approve of us. We are very concerned. We're all wearing masks so that we will be approved by the others. If no one was wearing masks, we would not wear masks, right? So we are social beings. And we seek security. Now, as I said, sometimes we don't want control, we want to let someone else control. Sometimes we don't seek approval, sometimes we want to revolt and say, no, I don't care what you say, I don't care what you think, I'm going to do this. Isn't it? Sometimes, yes, we have our own will. And security, it's not that we want all the time total security, we also take risks. We get up in the morning, otherwise we might, I'm afraid we would stay in bed all day. No, we get up, we go out, we venture, we take various sorts of risks. So there's a kind of play back and forth between, there's a dynamic, but still there's an extremely strong impulse toward wanting security. That's why the insurance companies do so well. Yeah, so we make efforts to defend ourselves, but our efforts, Prahlad Maharaj tells us, are subject to limitations. Balasya neha pitaro, balasya neha sharanam pitaro simha, nartasya chagadam udamvati, majjato now. Tattasya tat pratividhir, ya ihandishestat, tavakvibo, tanuvritam, tvadupekshitanam. He says, Prahlad says, he's worshipping, he's offering prayers to Nrsingadev. And he says, my Lord Nrsingadev, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls neglected and not cared for by you cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child, Valasya iha sharanam pitaro. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient, na artasya chagadam. And a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man, udamvati majjato now. These are just examples of, you make arrangements. We have our hospitals, we have our masks, we have our doctors, but still we may not be protected. So this is the reality, and on the global level, because now we're all looking at the news and we're all very much concerned, especially what is happening in Ukraine today, and we're wondering why is this happening? How is it possible? And we look for causes. And then we may want to remember the question that was posed and the answer that was posed to Dharma personified as a bull when he was being attacked by Kali. He was asked, who has done this to you? And Dharma, the bull, replies, well, it's very difficult to say. And he says, it might be this and it might be that. One could identify various causes, but really we cannot say what is the cause behind all the causes. And then Maharaj Parikshit says to him, you are Dharma personified, therefore you are not willing to point your finger at someone as the cause. He's saying. So if we reflect on the present situation, we may wonder, from a political perspective, one explanation which I find helpful is that on the level of the state, like there's Germany, all the different countries of Europe, the 100 and whatever it is, 80 something countries in the world, official states. They have no higher authority than the individual states. There's an effort, of course, with the United Nations, but we see that when there's some real trouble, then United Nations may say so many things, but it doesn't change anything. So on the global level of states, there's actually anarchy. And anarchy is when there's no recognition of a higher authority, namely Lord Jagannatha. How was that for timing? Jagannath Subhadra Baladeva Ki Jai. So, okay, I'm still not to the point, so Sacinandana Swami is saying, when is he going to get to the point? The point is Kirtan. Okay, so yes, what I want to say is, regarding Kirtan, this is the shelter because we are recognizing in Kirtan a higher authority who is a sublime authority, who is a loving, caring authority who we don't think of as authority. We simply want to praise this supreme, this personality of Godhead, who is smiling so sweetly and having such big eyes that he sees everything. And indeed, Kirtan, the word Kirtan, comes from the verbal root, Sanskrit verbal root, kirt, which can simply mean to mention, to refer to someone. But on the sort of high end of the meaning of the word, it means to praise, it means to glorify. And this is what we are doing when we are making kirtan. And Krishna says to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dhridavrata, that the devotees yatantaha make this effort. What sort of an effort? Dhrita vrata. They have a firm determination such that satatam, constantly, kirtayantaha. This kirtayantaha is in what's called a causative form of the Sanskrit, which means causing others to praise, causing others to glorify. And so that's why in the kirtan we're singing back and forth. One person is leading, we're all listening, and we become inspired by the leader to respond. And this responding is then inspiring we are inspiring each other, all with a single purpose. And this single purpose is to simply glorify the Lord. Normally, what do we do with our speaking power? Practically, we do everything but praise. In this world, we find many reasons to find fault in others, and we use our voices to voice our dissatisfactions, or so many things. But in kirtan, all of that goes, we put all of that aside, and we do one thing only, and that is to praise the Lord. And that brings about an atmosphere, and that is sometimes Prabhupada would call it the Vaikunta atmosphere of the temple. And what means Vaikunta? Vaikunta means freedom from kunta, freedom from trouble, freedom from anxiety. As many of you will know, in the Bhagavatam, there's the story of the 4 Kumaras. These are little boys. They were naked, little boys. They were not actually little boys. They were great sages, very elevated sages, but they looked like little boys. And they were quite renounced. They were digambara, they were dressed by the directions. And they decided one day, let's go on a little tour and visit. Let's go visit Lord Narayan in Vaikunta. And so they passed through the first gate, the second gate, the third gate, fourth gate, fifth gate, sixth gate, and then they came to the seventh and final gate, and that's where the trouble started. Many of you will know the trouble was in the perception of the two guards, Jai and Vijay. The perception was that you young boys cannot come in because you're not following the Vaikunta dress code. And so they were stopped, and there was some altercation, and eventually the Lord hears some, altercation going on, and he comes out, he comes to the threshold, what's going on. And at that time, something very interesting happens. Tasya Aravinda Nayanasya Padaravinda Kinjalta Mishra Tulasi Makaranda Vayu Antargata Savira Reina, that the aroma of the lotus feet of the Lord, which was mixed with the tulsi on the tulsi leaves, manjaris on his feet, Antargata Svavira Vivarena Chakaratesham, entered into the nostrils, literally, of the four Kumaras. So they are entering into Vaikunta, and then when they get almost all the way in effect, the Lord enters into them. They breathe in the Lord in the form of his wonderful, the aroma of his feet. Kirtan is allowing the Lord to enter into us. Now we understand, theoretically at least, the Lord is already in our hearts. And so we are, in a sense, the opposite. We are singing Krishna, and we are drawing Krishna out from our hearts. We can say it is both. The Lord is entering in, and the Lord we are breathing out as we sing. But something else happens, and that is we enter into, in fact, we enter into the Lord. And what do I mean by that? Well, as you may also know, Yashoda Mai, who was a very duty-conscious mother, when she heard that Krishna, she heard from the little boys, including Balaram, that Krishna had eaten dirt. As a responsible mother, she decided to take action. What was the action? To investigate. Her investigation began with interview. She interviewed Krishna, but in this interview, Krishna denied that he had eaten dirt. Mother Yashoda was not entirely convinced. After all, Krishna was quite known for his mischief, and that's extensively documented in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. So she still had some doubts, but she decided to investigate further. She was an empiricist, so to say, and so she had Krishna open his mouth so that she could look, so that she could use her eyes to see into his mouth. Well, you know what happened then. Krishna opens his mouth, and what does Mother Yashoda see? Mother Yashoda sees a lot more. She sees dirt. She sees the planet Earth. She sees all the other planets. That's a lot of dirt. She sees the whole universe. She sees also her husband, Nanda Maharaj. She also sees herself. Now think about that. Here she is, she's standing outside Krishna, and she's looking in Krishna's mouth, and she's seeing herself. Now, usually when we see ourselves sort of outside ourselves, that would happen when we look in the mirror, right? And it's interesting that we speak of looking in the mirror. We don't look at the mirror, we look in the mirror. It seems like the reflection of ourselves is somehow in the mirror that we see. Now, I bring this up because Mother Yashoda, in effect, has entered into Krishna, but she's perceiving also from outside Krishna. All of this is happening simultaneously. And this may remind us of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first instruction or shiksha of his Shikshastikam, Chaito Darpana Marchana. Bhava Mahadavagni Nivhapanam, Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam, Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam, Pratipadam Purnam Nitasvadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. The key phrase here is Chaito Darpana Marchana, that there is a cleaning of the mirror by which we see ourselves in the mirror of the heart. But we don't see ourselves alone. We see ourselves together with the Lord. We enter into the place in which there is Krishna. And there, what happens, this is explained here. Yes, this is the very last verse of chapter 5 of Sri Hari Bhakti Kalpa Latika, which I believe was a compilation done by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's not clear in this edition, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur Bhaktivinoda. In any case, he's going through all of the 9 processes of devotional service, and this is the chapter dealing with Kirtan, in which he describes in a wonderful overview Krishna's wonderful pastimes in Vrindavan. Well, before we come, no, I won't go to get distracted. Finally, he says, Iti tadad bhutanama guna bali shravana kirtanato Vimalatmanaha Hridi Parispurati Swayam Achyutomukam Iva Amaladarpana Mandale. Just as a face is reflected in a clear mirror, Lord Sri Hari personally manifests in the heart of anyone who has become purified by hearing and chanting his names and qualities. The Lord, in this translation, personally manifests in the heart. Hridi Parispurati, Swayam, himself. Swayam can mean personally, can mean himself. How does this happen? Just as a face is reflected in a clear mirror. So again, Chaito Darpana Marjanam. By doing Kirtan, there is a process by which there is a reflection. And in this reflection, we can as Prabhupada would say, come face to face with the Lord. And more, and particularly important in this context is we can experience the full power of the Lord to protect. That we are indeed the safest possible place in Kirtan. We create a bubble, a spiritual bubble, by sound vibration, and we can do this in all circumstances. Kirtan, there's some kirtan, but there's also we may be by ourselves because we are all sitting in our little apartments. We can make kirtan, and maybe the neighbors will complain if we're too loud, but we can make soft kirtan. Srila Prabhupada brought this process to the world, and some of you may have seen a rather famous photograph of Srila Prabhupada, in which the photo was taken at the Ratha Yatra in San Francisco. I believe it would have been 1968. And Prabhupada is there in front of the cart, and he has his hands raised like this. And around him are many devotees pounding on mridangas and making kirtan. And Prabhupada is looking just so joyful, and everyone is so joyful. And it's a very kind of an imprint. It imprints on the viewer a sense of the perfection of kirtan. So one time, this photograph appeared on the front cover of a Back to Godhead, an issue of Back to Godhead magazine, and this copies of this issue, of the early issue of Back to Godhead, were sent to India, and Achyutananda Swami received those copies of Back to Godhead with this picture on the front of Prabhupada like this, and he was spending some time with one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, Madhav Maharaj, and he showed the Back to Godhead to Madhav Maharaj, this picture. And when Madhav Maharaj saw this, he smiled, and he was so happy. He said, and his response was, "Go, Swamiji! Go, go, go!" He could recognize that he is bringing kirtan to the rest of the world, such that everyone can take shelter, everyone can experience this best of places of shelter, simply chanting together the names of Krishna. Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
I should probably stop here, considering the time. So if anyone has any more how to complete our sentence, kirtan is, or if you want to add something, Maharaj, maybe you want to add some points about this safest of conditions of kirtan.
I would like to just share with you an experience I had in Kirtan, where I felt very much protected. Maybe I can come there.
Hare Krishna. I remember we were in the former Yugoslavia, and we had a tour organized with programs in halls. And our final program was in Ljubljana, in the middle of town. It was in a really nice big hall. I remember it had windows that came from the floor up, but it was about 3 times as high as this temple. And now the day before this program was going to take place, the Serbian Republic attacked Slovenia. So when we were driving into Slovenia, we were overtaking a line of tanks, was a few miles long. These tanks were on their way to bomb the capital town, or to shoot the capital town, so to start the war. So I remember we overtook these tanks, and we greeted the soldiers to make a good atmosphere. And when we arrived in Ljubljana, the devotees asked me if under these circumstances of armed conflict, I wanted to still keep on doing the public program. Now, because we had sold so many tickets, I decided, yes, let us continue. And so the next day, before the program started, we went on the street into the hall, and there were helicopters, and they were shooting not at us, but 1 meter away from us, and making an announcement that all civilians have to go off the street. There will be fighting very soon. And so we rushed. I remember I was carrying a pot of halava, not so fast, into the hall. And again the question came to me, the armies are assembling, there will be a street fight, do we want to do the program? And I said, well, we can't say no now, everyone is coming and the hall is already half full. Let's try. So I remember we started the program, and sure enough, in the midst of the program, the shooting started, the bombing started, hand grenades flowing down. I remember the windows of that hall were all cracking and coming down, and so we all went underneath the stage as much as possible, and there was no point of fleeing because there was just shooting outside and shelling and bombing, and safest place was inside the hall. And it was going on, then the shooting was a little bit distant, and somehow I got the nerve to immediately jump on the stage, adjust the microphones, and start Kirtan, because I was convinced Kirtan is the safest place in the world. And Krishna somehow protected us. The war went somewhere else, and I remember we were all chanting, and after the program, maybe not the same day, but within 2 weeks, 9 new devotees were standing before the temple. They wanted to join. They said, we were in this program and Kirtan is the safest place. We saw it. Good. Now fasten your seatbelt. Second part. In the Ukraine, devotees told me they did Kirtan, but the shelling did not stop. I have heard they all did Kirtan, but there was no protection. The bombs went into the houses, into the apartments. And they gave many reports, and I was thinking, is Kirtan really the safest place in the world? For me, it worked in Slovenia, but it seems to not work always under all circumstances. In other words, and I heard from Niranjana Maharaj that some devotees lose their faith because they hear one thing and they experience another reality. So I want to ask the question to you. Please explain my bewilderment.
It's called putting the Swami on the spot. It's not that Krishna's protection is necessarily for this material body. Bodies are here. Bodies will sooner or later be finished. How they'll be finished, we don't know. Each of us have our future. We don't know how this life will end. So when we speak of Krishna's shelter, it's not that we are just making kirtan for some, protection from physical harm. Because physical harm, we may not be able to avoid physical harm. But if we're in kirtan, we are with Krishna, we are in Krishna, and therefore if it's time for us to go physically, then we will be in Krishna. We will be taken straight to Krishna. That would be my thought. Now that may not be very reassuring for devotees who are experiencing the terrifying reality that comes. And yet, that is our understanding. And that was Prahlad's understanding. He was put into terrifying conditions, and his solution to those conditions was simply to go on remembering, chanting the Lord. However much doubt may be there, and the devotee is saying, well, perhaps taking what is it called? Okay, it's not coming to me now. The wager of the French philosopher. Whether there is God, whether there is not God, wager on the side that there is God, and then you will not be the loser. Yes, John.
I'm sorry for interfering. I just remembered actually even two stories. It's maybe not the point of Kirtan as itself, but it's the point of the faith in the heart that this friend, Krishna or God, will help me if I will address him with my heart, with my heart,
Yeah.
with the prayer, please help. And Russian devotees, they told me that during the Second World War, one man who was kind of believer, but not praying so much, he was in the situation where the bombs were really falling intensely, and he was actually almost the only one who stayed alive, because, as he told devotees later, I was praying like anything, God, if you exist, please save me, please help me, and I will reciprocate in the future with my life, like this. He addressed God really personally. And the second story, I don't remember details now, from Ukraine. It was told by Jewish believers that one person received a call from his friend who told him, please pray right now, please pray to the Lord. So he started to pray, and he received a kind of message that he should take all the people from the place where he was and run away. So he just called them together, and this place was bombarded. I don't know, bombarded is the German language, I think.
Yeah.
Shelled. It was finished, destroyed.
So he took them away just in time.
Just a few minutes before.
Very nice. Yeah. So you're speaking, I would say the emphasis here is on prayerful kirtan. Please help. Yes, very nice. Thank you. Yes, Blaise Pascal. Pascal's wager. Yes. Taking the devotees don't gamble, but we make a gamble that God exists, as opposed to God not existing. We choose to wager that God exists. And if he doesn't exist, nothing's lost. But if we wager that God doesn't exist, and it turns out God exists, then we really lost. And so the wager, the argument goes like that, that the safest position for the person doubting is to say, even I may be doubting, I may not be convinced that God exists. Still, let me assume that God does exist, and let me act on that basis. Yes, in the back.
Would you hope it's an open forum? So I'd like to add something for our devotee family which might help all of us. We are in a refugee camp these days, I and my wife, devotee wife. And we've been reading a lot to understand what's God's plan beyond this, because that's always pleasing. Something which we see as a war, but there's definitely a better plan God has beyond this corona or war. We were reading one day that one of the articles of Prabhupada, someone asked why this famine, pestilence, war? And Prabhupada, our Prabhupada, sometimes sound arrogant, but he has a very strong message. He says, first people kill our animals, our cows, and they pray to the God, save us. But if you break universal law, universe first punish you. That means in devotee language we say purify. But devotees understand, non-devotees don't. So as a devotee family, even if you're in a refugee camp, I and Manas is saying, whenever we meet someone non-devotee who are eating meat, if they're interested to talk to us, we will tell them, stop killing cows, stop killing animals. God will look after you.
Okay.
So that I would like to add. And I have a question, Prabhuji. My question is, these days we are in a refugee camp. They are serving meat, I mean almost 100%. And we have a Ekadashi tomorrow. Even in usual days, for past 2 days, we didn't get food. They say it's vegetarian. And I and my missus laugh when they say vegetarian. Even in that vegetarian also, in their language, there's some kind of meat. So we take it, come to our room, open it, And my missus investigated. Oh no, it's meat. It's this meat, that meat. We go back, we give it. No, it's vegetarian. How to handle the situation? And sometimes we feel, should we not go to the social care and complain and talk about, or like in material language, there's so much suing that, oh, my religious faith. But then we feel, isn't it arrogance? Or we should accept it. Either we should stop eating, or we should accept it, or we should go ahead and take a step. What do you suggest?
Oh, that's a difficult situation, isn't it? This is really the age of Kali. Well, there is a principle which is, I believe it's in Manu Samhita, that self-preservation is authorized, and that means one has to eat. And so in circumstances where there's no choice, one may take what is available. And as one takes what's available, one prays at the same time, my dear Lord, please forgive us. This is our circumstance. You understand our situation. We'll be so grateful when this can be changed. Whether you could be instrumental to changing the diet, I have no idea what the arrangement there is. I could imagine it's quite difficult because it would call for special cooking arrangements, which they probably don't have facility for, don't have funding for, and so on. So it's quite possible they'll look at you and say, we can't, cater to everyone's diet. I can well imagine, but of course, we could always try. But not that you should starve. That's all. Would you agree?
Yeah, yes, I
would like to add to this. So self-preservation is important. And yes, I also read those sections in the sacred scripture that for self-preservation some exceptions can be done. But in addition to this, what I would recommend is that you very calmly, very gently, in a very humble way, go to those people who are behind the cooks, who organize it, and you say, I have been a vegetarian for so many for so many years now, and I do this out of ethical reasons and out of religious reasons, and can it be please arranged, because everyone in the West now knows what is vegetarian, that it's no longer so that it is completely strange. They do know, and there are many people are convinced that the vegetarian diet is the diet of the future. It is really the intelligent people know, normal people also know. It's in the magazines and so on. So I think these people who are serving, they cannot do anything. They cannot change anything. But if you go gently, peacefully, rationally, kindly to who are behind them, I think they can make an arrangement. I really think nowadays that is possible. You just have to be kind, gentle, rational, not in a complaining mood. You can say, I'm so thankful that you're taking care of the refugees from Ukraine, and really, but here's my personal dilemma, and then you explain, I've been doing this. I think something will will happen. You just have to know how to communicate and with whom to communicate. And then it's possible, I personally believe. Yeah. Beyond this, I mean, our discussion now turns naturally to the present situation. Situation present is really a wake-up call. We all are encouraged or called for responsible, mature action. Hare Krishna.
I asked Sarah Shiva, and she says Kirtan is well possible. The problem has been finished. She told me it's well possible. He told me. Yeah, Kirtan is possible, right?
Yeah, we will have more Kirtan.
Yeah, genau.
Maybe we can open all the windows for a short moment. That can be fresh air.
So I want to say thank you all very much for your patient listening. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Maharaj Ji ki
Ja, das ist wirklich schlimm. Wenn es jetzt schlimm ist, dann ist es vielleicht eine komische Situation, wenn ich jetzt nicht gucke, aber
Someone who can play, hat es sehen? Ja. Ich glaube, der hat die schicke.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare. Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Berlin Yatra ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan Berlin ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Hare Krishna. Do you have any announcements?
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I feel a little rusty standing here. It's been such a long time since we have had something like this happening here in the temple, and it makes me all the more happy that we could start or restart celebrating Lord Jagannatha here in the temple with the association of two such wonderful Vaishnavas. So a very loud and heartfelt Hari Hari Bol. Srila Krishna Kshetra Maharaj ki jai. Sacinandana Maharaj ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. So hopefully we can continue having programs like this now regularly again. We'll definitely do this again next week already, because on Friday is the appearance day of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we will have a very, very beautiful celebration here in the temple, beginning on Friday at 5 p.m. You're all invited to come. If you plan to come, please send us an email so we have a little bit of an idea of how many guests we are having. And we will have an Abhishek ceremony, Gora Katha, Kirtan, and a big feast. So it would be very, very nice if all of you could come and celebrate with us. Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai! I really feel there is so much built-up energy that needs to come out. Yeah, we need to have more kirtan. Also, as many of you know, in this current situation with Ukraine, the Berlin Temple is trying to help as much as we can, and we have made the temple available for refugees to come and stay. To make for practical reasons, we are opening the temple to female devotees to come and stay here, but we of course we know that also other devotees are coming. So if any of you have the opportunity to help in a practical way, by giving a room in your flat or the couch in your living room to devotees to stay for a while, please contact me, and I'm actually trying to coordinate the effort in all over Germany. Devotees are coming from Poland, from Hungary, from many places at the moment, and we're trying to find places all over Germany in different temples with different devotees. So if you have a place, or you know of someone who might have place for devotees to stay for a while, please let me know so that we can find quickly and in a very easy way shelter for all the devotees that are coming now to Germany. Then one more last announcement, since I'm seeing it. Before the program, we found a green beadbag with a stitched on Jagannatha in front of the temple lying on the street. So if one of you has lost that, it's there in the bookshelf to pick up. All right, now we will serve prasadam. I think we are
not
also...
all right. One moment. So, Sadashiva.
Hare Krishna. Sadashiva. Exactly 7 years ago, you started to take care of the temple. We have counted the days. They say 7 years, that life goes in phases of 7 years. 7 years childhood, then 7 years young age, then you're 14, puberty, then +7, 21, that's when you're seriously studying and so on. So, in the name of the congregation and in the name of the devotees, I have been asked, I don't know how I have this honor, so thank you very, very much. We all know that we didn't have a temple when Sadashiva came. There was a little
the community and Sadashiva started to organize regular kirtans. Maybe you know, small groups of devotees doing kirtan, and he sometimes in this place, sometimes in that place, sometimes in this place, and then it became clear that there was enough enthusiasm, enough commitment from the congregation to start to make actually a temple. Maybe for 1-2 years, Lord Jagannath was in a very small apartment. I mean, really small, tiny apartment. And then Sadashiva found this place, which was realistic at that time for us to rent. And the altar came, and then he has steered the ship of our temple through difficult times. We all know how difficult it was to steer through the last 2 years, where there was this little invisible thing which made so much visible opinions amongst the devotees and the community. And really, it is not easy. It is not easy. And our Raj Kishori and Malini Priya, here is a Malini, supported him to do it. I believe without Raj Kishori it would not have been possible. And I do remember whenever there was a festival, Raj Kishori made these amazing decorations. I remember in particular a lot Nashingadev, Nashinga Chaturdasi, where the Lord came out of this pillar which broke, Krishna Kshetra Maharaj. You would have fainted in ecstasy as the deity Seva minister of ISKCON. It was really impressive, and so on. And you kept this space open for so many years. Prabhupada once commented. He said to one Mr. Sethi, who helped to build the temple in Mumbai, you have, just like you have built rooms for the devotees of Krishna, Krishna is building a room in Krishna Loka for you. So I think all this, let us call it, all the sacrifice, all this blood, sweat and tears, and sometimes anyone who's in a leading role, sometimes devotees cannot see the same way the leadership sees, and then there is words which are little, they have the color red, or they're a little hot. So yes, but you kept this service going on, and we are very grateful. And the devotees have made a little book. I think whenever you are becoming, how to say, when you need some encouragement, this is your encouragement book. Thank you, dear Sadashiva. It says, and then we have an original painting. It's very artful. I request you, this is how it is closed, to open it and show it. It is very, it's a present for you. You will see. It's a really. Oh.
It's a very well-made surprise. Oh, wonderful.
The idea is really, this was the first storefront temple. It looked very much like this temple, really. Have you been there, Matchless Gift? So it is Matchless Gift. There are Radha and Krishna. The door is open, and here some people thinking, should I enter or should I not enter? It is, I think, a very poetic description of what it means to maintain a temple like this. It's an original painting. Good. So what do we say? Sada Shiva ki! Gaura Premanandi! And really auch, thank you very much, Braj Kishori. It is, I know it's you're the team. We can only see, you actually deserve half of the gratitude of, I don't know, you as husband and wife, you have to see about the percentage. And danke auch Malini Priya, du hast dich auch so hingegeben. So good. Hare Krishna.
You all managed to do something that is not easy to do, to make him speechless. Ja, kann jemand bitte mal die Tür aufmachen? Thank you all very, very much. This is very undeserved, and because I see myself as somebody who's collecting the enthusiasm and the desire to serve Lord Jagannath from all of you, and try to maybe put it into a little bit of a structured way, but that's really all I'm doing. So the thanks really is to all of you to keep this temple alive, to fill it with life, to keep it open over the last 2 years, to maintain the worship of Lord Jagannath. Thank you all very, very much for giving us all a place here to worship Krishna and to come together. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All right, let's have prasadam. We will need a few helpers to serve, and maybe we have forgotten how to do it, so it might be a little rusty today, but it would be nice if you can all sit in rows so that we can serve you quickly. Thank you all so much for this. This really means the world. Hare Krishna.